It was a crisp autumn evening when Tom Parker's world turned upside down. The leaves were just starting to change color, and the air had that familiar September crispness that usually brought him joy. He just finished a long day at the architectural firm, looking forward to coming home to the chaos and warmth of his family. The first sign that something was wrong hit him when he opened the front door. The house was eerily quiet. Usually by this time, the kitchen would be buzzing with activity, his wife cooking dinner while helping their oldest with homework, the twins chasing each other around the living room, and the little ones playing with their toys. But today, only silence greeted him. His footsteps echoed through the empty house as he called out, "Hello? Anyone home?" No response. He checked his phone. No messages from his wife about taking the kids somewhere. A knot began forming in his stomach. Walking upstairs to their bedroom, Tom noticed the closet door was open. His heart stopped. Her side of the closet was empty. All her clothes, shoes, and personal items gone. The bathroom told the same story. Her toiletries, makeup, even her favorite perfume that had sat on the counter for the past 13 years, all vanished. With trembling hands, he rushed back downstairs. That's when he saw it, a white envelope on the kitchen counter, his name written in her familiar handwriting. The paper felt heavy in his hands as he opened it, his eyes scanning the words that would forever change his life. "I can't do this anymore. I need to find myself. I'm sorry, but this life, this family, it's suffocating me. The kids are better off with you anyway. You've always been the better parent. Don't try to find me. I'll contact you through the lawyers." Tom collapsed onto a kitchen chair, the letter falling from his numb fingers. 15 years of marriage, 5 beautiful children, countless memories, all reduced to a few cold sentences on a piece of paper. His mind raced through their recent interactions, searching for signs he might have missed. Sure, she'd been distant lately, spending more time on her phone, going out with friends more often. But this, he never saw this coming. The sound of the school bus pulling up outside snapped him back to reality. In just moments, his children would walk through that door. How could he tell them? How could he explain that their mother had abandoned them? The thought of their pain made his chest tighten. He quickly splashed cold water on his face and took several deep breaths. He could break down later, but right now, his children needed him to be strong. The front door burst open, and the familiar symphony of backpacks dropping and excited chatter filled the house. "Dad, you're home early," his 12-year-old daughter called out, surprised to see him in the kitchen. The twins, both 9, raced in behind her, already arguing about whose turn it was to feed their pet hamster. His 6-year-old son followed, proudly clutching an art project, while the youngest, just 3, toppled in last, her pigtails slightly askew from the day's activities. Looking at their innocent faces, Tom felt a surge of determination through his pain. These were his children, their children, and he would move heaven and earth to make sure they felt loved and secure, even if their mother had chosen to walk away. "Hey kiddos," he managed, forcing a smile. "I thought we could order pizza tonight and maybe watch a movie together. How does that sound?" The kids cheered, temporarily distracting them from asking about their mother's absence. As they debated between pepperoni and cheese, Tom's mind was already racing, planning how to handle the upcoming days and weeks. He'd need to talk to his boss about flexible hours, find a reliable babysitter, maybe even see if his mother could come stay for a while. That evening, as they all piled onto the couch with pizza and sodas, Tom studied each of their faces. His oldest, so responsible and mature for her age, already giving him concerned glances. The twins, still blissfully unaware in their matching superhero pajamas. His artistic 6-year-old snuggled close to his side. And the baby of the family, who might not even remember her mother as she grew up. The movie played on the screen, but Tom barely saw it. He was mentally listing everything he needed to do: call a lawyer, arrange counseling for the kids, figure out new routines, learn to cook more than just spaghetti and tacos. The task seemed overwhelming, but what choice did he have? Later that night, after tucking everyone in with extra hugs and assurances that everything was fine, Tom finally allowed himself to cry. Sitting alone in his kitchen, clutching a cold cup of coffee, he let the tears flow freely. But even in his darkest moment, he knew one thing for certain: he would not let this break his family. He pulled out his phone and started making notes. Call mom tomorrow, look up family therapists, Check school counseling resources, learn to braid hair, YouTube tutorials. Find out about support groups for single dads. The list grew longer, but with each item he wrote, he felt a tiny bit more in control. As he finally headed up to bed, he paused at each child's room. Their peaceful, sleeping faces strengthened his resolve. Yes, their mother had left them, but he would make sure they never felt abandoned or unloved. Tomorrow would bring the difficult conversations, the tears, the questions he couldn't fully answer. But tonight, he let them sleep peacefully one last time in a world where their family was still whole. Tom lay in his empty bed, staring at the ceiling. The house felt different now, heavier somehow with the weight of single parenthood on his shoulders. But as he drifted off to sleep, his last thoughts weren't of anger or betrayal, but of determination. This wasn't the end of their story, it was just the beginning of a new chapter. And he would make sure it was a chapter filled with love, strength, and hope, no matter how hard the road ahead might be. That first year felt like running a marathon while juggling flaming torches. Tom quickly discovered that being a single parent to 5 kids wasn't just about keeping them fed and clothed, it was about holding an entire world together with nothing but willpower and coffee. The mornings were the hardest. He'd wake up at 5 a.m. just to have a moment of quiet before the storm. By 6, he was packing lunches, trying to remember who liked crusts off their sandwiches and who was currently in their no green foods phase. His oldest would help with the younger ones, but he could see the weight of responsibility in her eyes, a weight no 12-year-old should have to carry. "Sweetie, you don't have to be the mom," he told her one morning, catching her trying to iron her siblings' clothes. "You just focus on being a kid, okay? I've got this." She nodded, but he still caught her mothering her younger siblings when she thought he wasn't looking. The twins were taking their mother's absence hard, though they showed it in different ways. One became quieter, retreating into books and drawing, while the other acted out at school. Tom lost count of how many times he had to leave work for parent-teacher conferences, trying to explain their situation to understanding but concerned teachers. His 6-year-old stopped painting, the hobby he used to share with his mom. The art supplies gathered dust in the corner while he spent hours staring out windows. The therapist said it was normal, that he'd come back to it when he was ready, but it broke Tom's heart all the same. The youngest, thankfully, was too young to fully understand. She'd ask about Mommy sometimes, but was easily distracted by stories and games. Tom worried about what would happen when she got older, when she realized her earliest memories wouldn't include her mother. Work became a delicate balancing act. Tom's boss, a father himself, tried to be understanding, but there were still deadlines to meet and clients to please. More than once, Tom found himself sketching building plans at 2 a.m. after finally getting all the kids to bed and dealing with the mountain of laundry that never seemed to shrink. "You need help," his mother told him over the phone one night after hearing the exhaustion in his voice. "You can't do this alone." She was right, of course. The next week, she moved from 3 states away into a small apartment just 10 minutes from their house. Having Grandma nearby changed everything. She couldn't be there all the time, she had her own life and health to consider, but knowing he had backup made the world feel less overwhelming. She taught him how to cook more than just boxed mac and cheese, showed him the proper way to detangle long hair without tears, the kids or his. And most importantly, gave him a shoulder to lean on when it all became too much. The house slowly transformed. Where there used to be his wife's decorator touches, now there were family photos showing their new normal: picnics in the park, messy baking sessions, pillow fort championships. The kids' artwork covered the fridge, and mismatched socks became a family joke rather than a source of stress. Tom learned to be both mother and father, though he hated those gender-specific terms. He learned to braid hair by watching online tutorials, mastered the art of removing splinters without drama, and became the king of silly voices at bedtime. He wasn't trying to replace their mother, he knew that was impossible. Instead, he focused on being the best father he could be. Money was tight. Even with his decent architect's salary, going from 2 incomes to 1 while paying for childcare and therapy meant some tough choices. The fancy summer camps were replaced with backyard adventures. Designer clothes gave way to thrift store treasures, but somehow the kids seemed happier with their makeshift water parks and tie-dye parties than they had been with expensive outings. The hardest moments came at night, after the kids were asleep. That's when the doubts would creep in. Was he doing enough? Would they resent him later for not somehow preventing their mother from leaving? How could he protect them from the pain of abandonment while still letting them process their feelings in a healthy way? One night, about 8 months after she left, his oldest daughter found him sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and calendar schedules, looking completely overwhelmed. "Dad," she said, sitting next to him, "you're doing a good job. We're okay." Those simple words from his child who had to grow up too fast brought tears to his eyes. He hugged her tight, remembering again what really mattered, not the perfect schedule or the balanced meals, but the love that held them together. They developed new traditions. Sunday became breakfast for dinner night, where everyone helped cook and the kitchen ended up covered in pancake batter. Friday nights were for board games and blanket forts. They started a family journal where everyone could write or draw their feelings, no judgment allowed. The first year wasn't all struggles, though those seemed to dominate his memories. There were moments of pure joy too. The twins winning their first soccer game, his 6-year-old finally picking up a paintbrush again, the youngest learning to ride her tricycle. Each small victory felt magnified, perhaps because they had to work harder for everything now. Tom learned to celebrate the small wins, getting everyone to school on time with matching shoes. Victory. All 5 kids bathed and in bed before 9 p.m. Major achievement. Finding all the permission slips before they were due. Practically a miracle. His co-workers noticed the change in him. The once polished architect now sometimes came to work with stickers on his suit or glitter in his hair, but he also smiled more. Real smiles, not the professional ones he used to wear. He started bringing his sketchbook to his kids' sports games, combining work and family time in creative ways. As that first year drew to a close, Tom sat in his backyard one evening, watching his children play. The twins were teaching their little sister how to cartwheel, his oldest was helping the 6-year-old with his reading, and for a moment, everything felt right. They weren't the family they used to be, there was something different now, something stronger. They had learned to lean on each other, to find joy in simple moments, to face challenges together. The pain of abandonment was still there, but it no longer defined them. Looking at his children laughing in the fading sunlight, Tom realized something important. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were beginning to thrive. 3 years had passed since that life-changing day, and Tom's home had transformed from a place of chaos into a well-oiled machine. Well, most days anyway. The morning routine that once felt impossible now flowed with practiced ease, punctuated by inside jokes and familiar rhythms. "Dad, have you seen my blue notebook?" His oldest called from upstairs, now a confident teenager handling her first year of high school. "Check the kitchen counter," he responded while helping the youngest with her shoelaces. "Remember? You were working on that science project while we made dinner last night." The decision to start his own architectural consulting business from home had been scary, but it turned out to be exactly what the family needed. His old home office, once barely used, was now his headquarters. He'd installed a comfortable couch where the kids could do homework while he worked, and the walls were covered with a mix of architectural drawings and family photos. The twins, now 12, had developed their own morning duties without being asked. One packed lunches while the other fed their growing collection of pets, 2 hamsters, a cat, and a rescue dog they'd adopted last summer. The pets had been Tom's idea, a way to bring more love and responsibility into their lives. His 9-year-old son had finally returned to art with a passion, setting up his own little corner in Tom's office where he would sketch while his dad worked on building designs. Sometimes they would work side by side in comfortable silence, both lost in their own creations. The youngest, now 6, had no memories of their mother anymore. Sometimes this fact kept Tom awake at night, but during the day he focused on creating new memories. She had become his little assistant, proudly helping with everything from sorting laundry to watering the small vegetable garden they'd started in the backyard. Sunday cooking sessions had become a family tradition that everyone looked forward to. The kitchen would become a bustling workshop of chopping, mixing, and taste testing. They'd play music, dance while stirring pots, and share stories about their week. These sessions had started as a necessity. Tom needed to learn to cook proper meals, but they'd evolved into something much more meaningful. "Remember when Dad burned the spaghetti?" the twins would tease, referring to one of his early cooking disasters. "Hey, I've come a long way since then," he'd laugh, now confidently preparing meals that would have intimidated him 3 years ago. Who made that amazing lasagna last week? The house itself had evolved with them. The formal dining room had been converted into a homework center with a large table, plenty of supplies, and a wall-sized calendar where everyone's activities were color-coded. The living room now featured musical instruments alongside the TV. They discovered that several of the kids had musical talents that needed nurturing. Working from home meant Tom could be there for the small moments he might have missed otherwise. He could take breaks to help with homework, attend school events, or just listen to a child who was having a rough day. His business actually thrived because many clients appreciated his family-first approach and flexible schedule. They developed their own unique ways of handling challenges. When someone was having a bad day, they'd write it on the feelings board in the kitchen. No one was required to talk about it, but the simple act of acknowledging emotions helped them all stay connected. Sometimes solutions were as simple as extra hugs or favorite meals. Other times, they'd have family meetings to work through bigger issues. The therapy sessions had become less frequent, but were still an important part of their lives. Tom had learned that seeking help wasn't a sign of weakness but of wisdom. The kids had developed healthy ways to express their feelings about their mother's absence, and while the pain wasn't gone, it had transformed into something manageable. Their home had become a hub for other kids in the neighborhood. Tom believed in having an open-door policy, knowing how important it was for his children to maintain strong friendships. The sound of laughter and running feet was constant, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Financial planning had become second nature. Tom had set up college funds for each child, teaching them about saving and budgeting along the way. They'd learned to find joy in simple pleasures, camping trips instead of expensive vacations, game nights instead of costly entertainment. The garden they'd started as a small hobby had grown into something special. Each child had their own section to tend, growing everything from tomatoes to flowers. It became a metaphor for their family. With proper care and attention, beautiful things could grow from difficult beginnings. Their weekly family meetings, once formal affairs for organizing schedules, had evolved into comfortable gatherings where they'd share dreams, fears, and ideas. Tom made sure each child felt heard and valued, creating an environment where they could be honest about their feelings. "You know what I love most about our family?" His oldest had said during one such meeting. "We're real with each other. We don't pretend everything's perfect, but we're perfect for each other." That comment had brought tears to Tom's eyes. They weren't the family they'd started as, but they'd built something strong and beautiful together. Each challenge had made them closer, each obstacle overcome had made them more resilient. As Tom sat in his office late one evening, looking at the architectural plans for a new project while his youngest daughter colored quietly beside him, he realized something profound. They hadn't just built a new normal, they'd built something extraordinary. Their home wasn't just a place to live, it was a testament to the power of love, determination, and the unbreakable bonds of family. The pain of abandonment had transformed into a foundation of strength. They'd learned that family wasn't about who left, but about who stayed, who fought, who loved unconditionally. Every day wasn't perfect, but every day was filled with love, and in the end, that was what mattered most. 7 years into their journey as a single-parent family, the Parker household was buzzing with an energy that could only come from triumph over adversity. Tom sat at his desk, reading the acceptance letter from one of the country's top medical schools while trying to hold back tears of pride. His oldest, now 19, had not only gotten in, but had been offered a significant scholarship. "Dad, did you see?" She burst into his office, waving her own copy of the letter. All those late nights studying actually paid off. He pulled her into a tight hug, remembering the little girl who had tried so hard to be strong when her mother left. Now she stood tall, confident, her dreams within reach. "I never doubted you for a second, sweetheart." The twins, at 16, had become stars of their high school sports teams. One excelled in soccer, earning the captain's position, while the other had discovered a passion for swimming. Their different paths had helped them develop their own identities while maintaining their close bond. "Coach says I might have a shot at a college scholarship," the soccer captain announced during dinner one evening. "And before you worry about the cost, Dad, I've already started researching academic scholarships too." Tom smiled, touched by how his children had grown to understand the family's financial realities without becoming bitter about them. They'd learned to be resourceful, to find opportunities, to work hard for what they wanted. His 13-year-old son had transformed his early love of art into something remarkable. His paintings now hung not just on their fridge, but in the school gallery and even at a local cafe. The same sensitivity that had made him vulnerable in those early days had become his strength, allowing him to capture emotions on canvas in ways that moved people to tears. "I painted this for you, Dad," he said one day, unveiling a portrait of their family gathered in their beloved kitchen. "It's us, but I also painted in all the love and stuff you can't actually see." The youngest, now 10, had bloomed into a natural leader at her elementary school. She started a club for kids with single parents, creating a space where they could talk about their feelings and support each other. When Tom heard about it from her principal, he couldn't have been prouder. The community had noticed their family's journey. Other single parents, particularly fathers, started reaching out to Tom for advice. What had begun as casual conversations over coffee evolved into informal support group meetings in their backyard. "You should turn this into something official," one of the dads suggested during a weekend gathering. "You've got so much to teach others about making it work." Taking that advice to heart, Tom started organizing parenting workshops. He shared practical tips about juggling work and family, but more importantly, he offered hope. His family became living proof that loss didn't have to define you. The kids got involved too. The twins spoke at their school about resilience, his artist son created posters for the workshops, and his youngest helped welcome other children during the meetings. Even his oldest would come home from college to share her experiences when she could. Their home had become more than just a house, it was a beacon for others facing similar challenges. The kitchen table that had witnessed so many family discussions now hosted support group meetings. The backyard where his children had learned to heal became a gathering place for other families learning to rebuild. "You know what's crazy, Dad?" his oldest said during one of her visits home. "Remember how we thought we were broken when Mom left? Look at us now. We're helping other families find their strength." The walls of their home told their story through years of photographs. Pictures of tearful graduations, sports victories, art show ribbons, and simple family moments covered every available space. Each image captured not just an event, but a milestone in their healing journey. Tom's architectural business had evolved too, influenced by his experiences. He began specializing in designing homes that worked for single-parent families, practical spaces that could handle the chaos of solo parenting while fostering connection and warmth. "Your designs feel different," a client once told him. "It's like you understand exactly what families like ours need." The kids had developed their own ways of supporting each other. The twins helped their younger siblings with sports and confidence building. The artist's son taught his little sister how to express her feelings through painting. The oldest, even from college, made time for video calls with each sibling. Their success wasn't just in their achievements, though those were impressive. It was in the way they'd learned to lean on each other, to celebrate each other's victories, to lift each other during defeats. They'd created a family culture of resilience and love that no absence could shake. 7 years after their world had seemingly fallen apart, they'd built something remarkable from the pieces. Their story became one of hope, proving that sometimes life's biggest challenges can lead to unexpected blessings. As Tom watched his children thrive, he realized that their greatest achievement wasn't in their individual successes, but in the way they'd learned to turn their pain into purpose. They hadn't just survived abandonment, they'd used it as fuel to create something beautiful, something that now helped others find their way through similar storms. Every morning, before the house woke up, Tom would stand in his kitchen with his coffee, looking at the family photos on the walls. Each smiling face told a story of resilience. Each achievement marked a victory over adversity. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were showing others how to thrive. The transformation of Tom's architectural consulting business into a thriving empire happened almost by accident. What started as a way to be more present for his children had grown into something far bigger than he ever imagined. His small home office had expanded into a modern 3-story building downtown, but it wasn't just any corporate space, it was designed with families in mind. "Dad, you've got to see this," his oldest daughter said during one of her medical school breaks, walking through the office. "Your waiting room has more toys than a daycare." She smiled, watching young children play while their parents, most of them single parents like Tom, worked at comfortable desks nearby. The on-site daycare center had been his first major innovation. Tom remembered all too well the struggle of balancing work with childcare. Now, his employees could bring their kids to work, checking on them during lunch breaks or whenever they needed to. The sound of children's laughter mixing with business calls had become the company's signature atmosphere. "Your office is different from anywhere I've ever worked," one of his architects, a single mom of 3, told him. "It feels like home." That was exactly what Tom had aimed for. A place where work and family life could coexist harmoniously. The business model was simple but revolutionary: flexible schedules for all employees, work-from-home options, and understanding that family always came first. His team consisted largely of single parents who had struggled to find traditional jobs that accommodated their unique needs. "Remember when you used to work on designs at my soccer games?" one of the twins asked during a family dinner. Now 17, they were helping design the company's new sports facility. "That's why your business works. You get it. You lived it." The company's reputation grew rapidly. Clients were drawn not just to their innovative designs, but to their unique approach to business. Other firms started copying their family-friendly policies, and Tom couldn't have been happier about it. "The more companies that support single parents, the better," he often said in interviews. His 13-year-old son had unwittingly contributed to the company's success by suggesting they add art therapy rooms to the office space. "Sometimes kids just need to paint their feelings," he'd said, and he was right. The art rooms became a sanctuary for employees' children dealing with their own family challenges. The youngest, now 10, had made herself the unofficial office greeter. She knew every employee's children by name and had an uncanny ability to make newcomers feel welcome. "She gets that from you," his staff would say, though Tom knew she developed that compassion all on her own. The business expanded beyond architecture into community support. They started offering free workshops for single parents, teaching everything from financial planning to time management. The conference room that hosted client meetings by day became a gathering space for support groups by night. "You're not just building buildings anymore," his mother observed during one of her visits. "You're building communities." She was right. Each project they took on considered not just the structural needs, but the human elements, how spaces could bring people together, support families, create connections. The company's sustainable housing division, sparked by the twins' interest in environmental science, focused on creating affordable, eco-friendly homes specifically designed for single-parent families. Features like shared community spaces and built-in childcare facilities made these developments particularly popular. Their innovative approach caught the attention of national media. Business magazines wanted to know the secret behind their success. Tom's answer was always the same: "We succeed because we understand what families need. Every design decision, every policy, comes from real experience." The office culture reflected the lessons Tom had learned raising his own family. Meal sharing became a company tradition, with employees taking turns cooking in the fully equipped office kitchen. Children's artwork decorated the walls alongside architectural drawings. Conference calls were sometimes interrupted by proud parents sharing their kids' achievements. His oldest daughter, now in her final year of medical school, used her breaks to provide health education workshops for the company's families. The twins helped organize sports activities for employees' children. Even his artistic son contributed, teaching art classes in the therapy rooms. "You've created something amazing here, Dad," his oldest said one evening, watching employees and their children leaving the office together, smiling and chatting. "This isn't just a business, it's a family." The company's success allowed Tom to help other single parents start their own businesses. He set up a mentorship program, offering guidance and sometimes seed money to help others achieve their dreams while balancing family responsibilities. What made the company truly special wasn't its profit margins or award-winning designs. It was the way it proved that success didn't have to come at the expense of family. Every employee knew that if their child had a school play or got sick, they could take the time they needed without fear of judgment. As Tom stood in his office one evening, watching the sunset through the large windows he'd specifically designed to let in natural light, he reflected on the journey. The scared single dad who'd started working from home out of necessity had created something that was changing lives. The wall behind his desk held photos of not just his own family, but of employees' families too: graduations, birthdays, achievements big and small. Each picture told a story of resilience, of balance found, of dreams achieved not despite family obligations, but because of them. His company had become more than a business success story. It was proof that when you build something with love and understanding at its foundation, amazing things can grow. The empire they'd built wasn't just about architecture, it was about creating spaces and opportunities for families to thrive together. 10 years had passed when the past came knocking in the form of a social media notification. Tom was in his office, reviewing plans for a new family-friendly housing complex when his phone buzzed. His heart skipped a beat when he saw the message. It was from his ex-wife. She had seen the magazine feature about his successful business empire and their children's achievements. The article, titled Rising from Adversity, How One Single Father Built a Legacy of Love, had gone viral in the business community. It featured photos of their thriving family and detailed how their journey had inspired a revolutionary approach to family-friendly workplace culture. "I hardly recognize them," her message read. "They've grown so much. You've done an amazing job." Tom sat back in his chair, a mix of emotions washing over him. The hurt that had once felt like a gaping wound had long since healed into a quiet scar. His oldest was finishing medical school with honors. The twins had just started college, one studying environmental science, the other pursuing sports medicine. His artist son was winning national competitions, and his youngest was thriving in her first year of high school. The article had captured their family's spirit perfectly. There were photos of the company's innovative office space, with its built-in daycare center and art therapy rooms. It showed employees' children doing homework in the common areas while their parents worked nearby. The piece even featured testimonials from single parents whose lives had been transformed by the company's family-first policies. "Would you be willing to meet for coffee?" her next message asked. "I know I have no right to ask, but I'd like to explain." Tom shared the messages with his children that evening during their weekly family dinner. These dinners had become sacred time. Even with some of them away at college, they'd video call in to participate. The family's reaction was mixed. "I'm not ready," one of the twins said firmly. The other nodded in agreement. His oldest, wise beyond her years, spoke carefully. "I think you should meet her, Dad. Not for her, but for you. For closure." The younger ones were curious but cautious. They'd grown up seeing only pictures of their mother, hearing stories that carefully balanced truth with kindness. Tom had never spoken ill of her, but he'd never hidden the reality of her choice either. After much discussion, Tom agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe downtown. Walking in, he felt strangely calm. The cafe was one his company had designed, warm, welcoming, with spaces created for comfortable conversations. She was already there, sitting at a corner table. 10 years had changed her too, though not as dramatically as it had changed their children. She stood when she saw him, uncertainty clear in her movement. "You look well," she said softly as he sat down. "Thank you," he replied simply. "You do too." She had followed their lives through social media and news articles, she explained. She'd seen their oldest daughter's medical school acceptance, the twins' sports achievements, their son's art exhibitions, their youngest's leadership activities. "I thought," she paused, struggling with her words. "I thought leaving them with you was the kindest thing I could do. I was so lost, so unhappy. I convinced myself they'd be better off." Tom listened quietly, stirring his coffee. The anger he'd once felt had long since transformed into something else, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. People make choices they can't undo, and sometimes the best thing to do is move forward. "They were better off with love," he finally said. "That's what I learned. It wasn't about being mother and father, it was about being there, being present, creating a home where they felt secure enough to grow." He told her about the family traditions they'd created, Sunday cooking sessions, game nights, the vegetable garden they still maintained. He shared stories about how each child had found their path, how they'd supported each other through challenges and celebrated each success. "I saw the article about your company," she said. "What you've built, it's incredible. You turned our family's story into hope for others." Tom smiled slightly. "The children did that. Their resilience, their love, they showed me how to turn pain into purpose. Everything we built together." She asked if there was any chance of reconnecting with the children. Tom was honest. It would have to be their choice when and if they were ready. Some might never be ready, and that was okay too. As their meeting drew to a close, she looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You did everything right," she said. "Everything I couldn't do." "I did everything with love," he corrected gently. "That's all any parent can do." Walking back to his office, Tom felt lighter somehow. The meeting hadn't changed their past, but it had confirmed something important. Their family's strength hadn't come from the absence of challenges, but from how they'd faced them together. That evening, as he shared details of the meeting with his children during their group video call, he was struck by their maturity. They'd asked thoughtful questions, expressed their feelings openly, supported each other's different reactions. These weren't the broken children she'd left behind. They were strong, compassionate individuals who had learned to turn adversity into advantage. "You know what, Dad?" his oldest said before ending the call. "Meeting her or not, we already have everything we need. We have each other." Tom looked around his home office at the wall of family photos showing their journey. Each image told a story of growth, of love, of choosing to rise above circumstances. Their mother's sudden interest couldn't shake what they'd built, it could only confirm how far they'd come. The final chapter of their story unfolded on a warm summer evening in the backyard of their family home. Tom sat in his favorite chair, watching his children prepare for their annual family barbecue, a tradition they'd started during those early difficult days that had now become a cherished celebration. His oldest daughter, now a practicing resident at the local hospital, was setting up the medical station she insisted on having at every family gathering. "Old habits die hard," she laughed, organizing Band-Aids and antiseptic wipes. Her dedication to caring for others had grown from those early days of helping with her younger siblings. The twins, fresh from their college graduation, were arguing good-naturedly about the best way to grill vegetables. One had become an environmental scientist, the other a physical therapist, but they still worked together as seamlessly as they had when they were kids doing household chores. His artist son, now in art school with a growing reputation in the local gallery scene, was setting up an easel to capture the family gathering. "Every moment tells a story," he explained, mixing his colors with confident strokes. The same sensitivity that had once made him vulnerable had become his greatest strength. The youngest, preparing to start college in the fall, was organizing games for the children of Tom's employees who had become extended family over the years. She had grown into a natural leader, carrying forward the legacy of creating safe spaces for others to heal and grow. As Tom watched his family, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The past 10 years had shaped them in ways he never could have imagined when he first found that goodbye note in the kitchen. Their mother's recent attempt to reconnect had affected each child differently. Some had chosen to meet her for coffee, asking carefully prepared questions about her life and choices. Others had decided they weren't ready and might never be. Tom had supported each decision, understanding that healing takes different paths for different hearts. "You know what's amazing, Dad?" his oldest said, sitting beside him. "You never tried to make us forget her, but you also never let her absence define us. You taught us that love is stronger than loss." The company Tom had built continued to grow, but its heart remained the same, creating spaces and opportunities for families to thrive. His employees' children played in the yard alongside his own grandchildren, the next generation already learning the values of compassion and community that had become their family's hallmark. The garden they'd planted in those early years had grown into a small urban farm, providing fresh vegetables for local food banks. Each family member still maintained their own plot, even those away at college would return to tend their sections during visits home. Their house had evolved too. The wall of family photos now included graduation pictures, wedding photos, and images of new beginnings. Each frame told a story of triumph over adversity, of love winning over loss. "Remember when we thought we were broken?" one of the twins asked, flipping burgers on the grill. "Now look at us, we're helping other families put themselves back together." Tom's parenting workshops had grown into a national program, helping single parents across the country find their strength. His children often participated as speakers, sharing their perspectives on resilience and growth. "The funny thing is," his artist son observed, sketching the scene before him, "what felt like an ending turned out to be just the beginning of something beautiful." The youngest had created a mentoring program for children of single parents, drawing from her own experience to help others find their voice. Every kid should know that different kinds of families can be just as full of love, she often said. As evening fell, the yard lit up with streamlights, another tradition born from those early days when they'd needed to create their own magic. The air filled with laughter, conversation, and the kind of comfortable chaos that only comes from a house full of love. Tom looked around at his family, not just his children, but the extended family they'd created through their journey. Employees who had become friends, neighbors who had become support systems, and even some of the first single parents they'd helped, all gathered together in celebration. "You did it, Dad," his oldest said softly. "You turned our story into hope for others." But Tom knew the truth. They had done it together. Every tear, every triumph, every moment of doubt and determination had been shared. They hadn't just survived their mother's departure, they had used it as fuel to create something extraordinary. The sound of children playing, adults laughing, and music playing filled the air. This was their legacy, not the successful business, not the awards and achievements, but the love they had built together, the strength they had found in each other, and the hope they had created for others. As the stars began to appear in the evening sky, Tom raised his glass in a toast. "To family," he said simply, "in all its beautiful forms." The response came from every corner of the yard, voices joining together in celebration of a journey that had started with loss but had led to so much love. They had proven that sometimes life's greatest challenges can lead to its greatest blessings, and that the true measure of family isn't who's missing, but who chooses to stay, to love, to grow together. Their story wasn't just about overcoming abandonment, it was about discovering that love doesn't break when it's tested. It transforms, grows stronger, reaches out to embrace others who need it. In the end, they hadn't just built a new kind of family, they had created a legacy of love that would continue to touch lives for generations to come.